The following video is for educational purposes only and demonstrates how pre-installed apps on a legally purchased, self-owned Nixplay frame can be disabled using standard Android debug bridge tools. All changes are fully reversible and performed entirely on the user side using publicly available methods. Nothing in this video involves bypassing DRM, encryption, or gaining unauthorized access to paid features. The steps shown rely solely on features intended for developers and do not involve any software modification or redistribution. All content complies with fair use and local device ownership rights. This video is not affiliated with, endorsed by, or sponsored by Nixplay.
A few weeks ago, Nixplay decided to pull a major bait and switch and to force you into buying a subscription. So basically, they turned their ecosystem into ludicrous ransomware. They sell you something that you can no longer use unless you keep paying them money. So this is probably why you're watching this video, and this is definitely why I made this video. I will show you how I opened my frame, which tools I used, how I disabled the Nixplay integration, and how I connected it to my Synology NAS, how you can connect it to your local storage or to your Immich server, that is Immich, which I also did. Once you've done all that, you want to close your frame again, of course, but the problem remains that this frame is really hard to access unless you open it or you install a piece of remote desktop software, which is what I'll show you how to do. Now, my frame came with a remote control, and I found a way to still use it even after you've disabled all the Nixplay services, to browse your photos, but also to turn off the screen and to turn it back on again. It doesn't work with just any app, you'll have to use a special kind of app, but I'll show you how to do that as well. Now, I'm sorry to say that what I'm going to show you might not work on your frame as well. It seems to depend on the model that you've got. I have a Nixplay 2K or W10E, and it's working flawlessly on that one. But maybe in your case it'll be different. And if you have the technical expertise to explain to other people what that difference is, I'd like to encourage you to also produce some kind of video or to publish your findings online, and I'll be happy to link them in the description of this video. Now, one functionality I wasn't able to make available to third-party apps is the frame's motion sensor. It doesn't seem to be exposed to the Android system in the way that other sensors are exposed to the Android system. So maybe we need some kind of driver, some kind of other third-party app that can access it. And if you have any kind of idea on how we could pull that off, then I'd love to hear from you as well. So without much further ado, I'm going to show you now how I open my frame, and I hope how you will be able to open your frame as well. Okay, so this is the frame that I hadn't opened before. I'm gonna open it now. And what you need is basically an opening tool. I mean, you could use a screwdriver, but I would absolutely recommend against it because normally you leave scratches on the frame, and that's not what you want to do with a frame that was already very expensive. I personally like this iFixit tool because it specifically says that it is designed to break before your device does, and from my experience, that is actually true. So I'll link to it in the description. You also need a screwdriver with a Phillips number 0 head, but you'll need that later on. Right now, all we need is the opening tool. So let's get to it. You take the opening tool and you try to pry open the frame where it says Nixplay. There's this little insert, and there is some kind of space that you can use to pry it open. So let me just try and do that now. As you can see, this tool has already seen some action, so it's not as easy. Okay, and I can see that all right, mine broke, but it's only the little insert. You can still put it back in, it's not a big deal. Now you have to be a little bit more careful when it comes to the frame itself, but like I said, I recommend opening it close to this part. Now what you do is you slide it in and you try to pry it open. Now it's not gonna work on the first attempt maybe, but just be careful and be patient. And then you work your way to the corner and you do the same thing over there as well. And if you've managed to do this, then it should basically open it. If it doesn't work on one corner, just go to the next and try your luck over there, which is what I'm gonna do now. All right, now this has worked. So it's basically snapped open. The full top is now open here, but this is obviously only one side of the frame, so I need to rotate it and continue over here. But you might be able to see that it's already opened again over here. And I just continue all the way there. Now this is getting easier and easier. And now you can even try to completely remove it, and that's it. So you've got the frame open. As soon as that has happened, you're basically good to go. Now, you're going to see this display, and you're going to see a lot of screws, and you can actually unscrew them with a Phillips screwdriver, but you don't want to do this because it's not going to help you at all, because you need to get to the little micro USB port that is underneath the screen. And the interesting thing is that the screen is actually just put on top of it, and you can basically lift it. Now, it's going to stick to the top, which is actually the bottom of the frame. It's still gonna stick over here because there's some kind of tape that holds it in place. But if you very, very carefully try to lift it, then you can still, do this, and just be careful and put it over to the side like this. What you want to do next is take the screwdriver and unscrew the small black screws. So you've got 4 screws in total. And what you'll do next is just lift this a little bit, only so much that you can put the USB cable in here. And that's what I'm gonna do now. So you're going to need a micro USB cable. I'm just gonna try and lift it high enough so I can slide it in, which I just did. And that's pretty much all you need. Now you want to carefully put this back here, and then you're good to go. This is pretty much all we had to do to prepare the frame. And now we can disable the Nixplay integration and install our own third-party apps to liberate the frame from the Nixplay cloud requirement. All right, a moment of truth. Let's try and plug it in and see what happens. And as you can see, the frame is booting up, so everything seems to be quite okay. You could actually power the frame that way, and what you're seeing right now is the Android boot animation that you maybe know from your Pixel phone or whatever your manufacturer is. So this is looking all good, and it's just gonna start. Now, right from the start, I'm gonna show you something. I'm just gonna unplug it to do so. You might do what I did and just tinker and tinker and tinker and delete stuff and play around with the system files. And if you do, you may eventually find out that your frame is no longer booting or other things are not working as they should. And if that happens, what you can do is basically very carefully, I'm just gonna try and get the display off again, very carefully do this, and then just push this little button that you have over here. This is the recovery button. So what happens when you push it and you plug it in, you need to push it first. So I'm pushing it, I'm plugging in the frame, and I'm just gonna release it. And what happens now is that the frame is booting, but only after a short while, so don't worry too much about it. Eventually it will start, and then it won't do the normal booting, but what it will do is it will reinstall the system. So that's pretty cool because you have like this kind of recovery image that reflashes the whole frame. So if you completely mess up everything, you can still do something about it and just basically start from scratch. So that's a really neat part of this whole system. Now, while it's booting up, I'm going to give you an overview of the apps that we're about to install. There are several apps that we're going to be using. There's Aerial Views, which is probably the nicest one and probably the one that you want to be using because you can use it to access your pictures from your image server. You can use it to access your pictures from the frame. So you can put some pictures on the tablet, the frame itself. You can also use it to access pictures from your NAS. and also from like local shares, like Windows shares or something like that. So that's a pretty cool one. It also has some video support, and I'm going to show you some videos later that you can access through this app. The second app is one that you can specifically use for Immich. Aerial Views also works with Immich, and I'll tell you a little bit about the differences later on. But you can use either of those, and we want to install both because both have special features that they're really good at. Now, later on, you're going to be closing up your frame. And the problem is that at least I wasn't able to enable ADB over Wi-Fi. It does exist, and it should probably be possible to somehow enable it, but I wasn't able to do so. Now, the problem, of course, with ADB over Wi-Fi is that it's not persistent if you don't sort of mess around with the system, because every time you reboot, it gets disabled. So not only do you have to get ADB over Wi-Fi, you also have to be able to make it persistent. And I was neither able to enable ADB over Wi-Fi, nor was I able to make it persistent. But if you are, then please just let me know how it works. And I would love to do that, because as much as I think AnyDesk is a really cool solution, it's another closed source program, and it's free for now. So you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Okay, then we're gonna be installing material files. It's a really nice file manager that you can use to access the files on your frame. And we also want to have a browser on it. There is no browser on it because in a moment we will take away everything Nixplay. Then there is basically nothing that you can use to interact with the frame. And in the beginning, one of the most important apps that we're going to install is Nova Launcher, because Android without a launcher is basically unusable. I mean, you can still use it, you can still use ADB and do all sorts of things with it, but normal people probably want to have some kind of app that they can interact with. So that's something else we'll be doing. Now, as you can see, the frame has rebooted, and it's also showing the welcome screen. So you can see what it normally looks like when you buy it and boot it up for the first time. Okay, so what are we going to do? Well, first of all, I want to connect to it. So what I'll be using is a really cool app, Visor. I bought it a few years ago, but I'm just going to show you what it does. You don't have to buy it, but if you don't buy it, it's not going to look as nice as mine. The streaming quality is pretty bad if you use the free license. Okay, now it's already found my frame, so all you have to do is connect to it. And how do you do that? Well, it's pretty simple because ADB debugging is already enabled on the frame, luckily for us. So all you have to do is click on that play button, and then it installs itself on the frame. And there you go. I have the Pro license. I'm getting a really nice view of the frame. And as you can see, this is basically the frame as it is. Now, why did I install this? Because there's also another tool that you don't have to pay anything for. It's Screen Copy or Scriptby or whatever you want to pronounce it. And I tried it and it works, but I wasn't able to control the screen. And what I can do here is actually I can interact with the screen. So I can later on use Visor to completely control my tablet that is a frame, or my frame that is a tablet. Okay, now it's possible that ADB won't work out of the box for you, depending on how much you've already done with your computer, playing around with Android phones or something like that. If you haven't really done that at all, then it is possible that you're not going to be able to connect to your frame. If that is the case, there is a universal USB driver that you can install, and I'm just going to do this for now. It specifically tells you when you install it that your Android device shouldn't be connected to your PC. So I'm gonna disconnect it. Visor isn't too happy right now, but I'm gonna go next, next, and so on. I didn't really have to do this because Visor is already working and Visor is using the ADB connection. So I'm just gonna install it anyway, just to show you what it looks like. But once it's installed, you can plug the frame back in and then basically just wait for it to boot. Now, to do some ADB magic, you're also going to be needing ADB, but I found that the best way to get ADB onto your system is by installing ADB Minimal and Fastboot, which is a really nice lightweight package that you can easily just download and unzip. I'm going to link the portable version. The problem here is that it's no longer actively maintained. It still works. I'm using it like regularly, but there are different ADB versions. ADB, like any piece of software that is under active development, keeps changing. So you want to make sure that you have the same ADB version for your minimal ADB and fastboot as you do for your Visor app, if you use the Visor app as well. And to do so, you just open the Visor directory, and here you can find the ADB file. Now what you do is you just copy it over and replace it. Now, if you want to get started, if we go back to Visor, the frame is back. It's also restored its connection, so we can see the welcome screen. Now, what I want to do is I want to get rid of all this Nixplay stuff on my tablet for obvious reasons. And how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to right-click here and open a terminal. If you're not able to just open like a command prompt in here, you can just type in CMD and press enter, and it's gonna start, but then you have to still navigate to the folder where the ADB file is. So I've enabled this, I think. I think that some Windows version did disable it, and I re-enabled it, so I don't know, maybe this is not what it normally looks like. Anyway, it's not a problem to start a command prompt. And what we're gonna be doing now is we're gonna be uninstalling the Nixplay apps. Well, not really, though. We're not going to be uninstalling them. They're system apps, so it's a bit problematic. You can't really get rid of them without problems. I'm sure there are ways, but as soon as you yank something out of a system that is very specific to this frame, you might end up with some other problems. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to almost delete them. We're just going to be disabling them. Maybe you have like an Android file manager or something that allows you to freeze apps. Titanium Backup used to be able to do that, and maybe you have done that before, and then you probably know what I'm talking about anyway, and I can just stop talking about it. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be disabling both Nixplay apps. Let's start with the first one. There are two Nixplay apps on the frame, and this is the first one. As you can see when looking at the mirror, it's actually not connected to this welcome screen, but once I disable the second app, this welcome screen will disappear. So let's do that. Okay, so as you can see, we've basically completely nixed Nixplay on this tablet. And now we have a different problem, and that problem is that I'm not able to interact with it anymore. I mean, I can using ADB, but I can't really sort of interact with the tablet itself. So what I need to do to be able to actually play around with this thing is I have to install a launcher, and the quintessential launcher on Android has been Nova Launcher for a long time, so I'm going to be installing that. I did download it in the beginning, and I would also advise for you to download all the APK files, so all the apps, into this folder where you've got the ADB as well, and I'm going to link to all the downloads in the description. So let's install Nova. Now the command is always the same. It's ADB -D install, and then you just go and you have to enter the name. Now I know that this is the name, so I'm just going to start and press tab, and then I'm going to press enter. Okay, so here it is. Now it prompts you to choose your initial layout. I'm going to start fresh. There's a little next button at the bottom on the right. I'm going to click on it. Choose your theme. It doesn't really matter. Next. And then draw style swipe up is really good. I'm going to go for apply. Now, after a short moment, you will see the desktop or the home screen or whatever you want to call it. And you can long click on this widget and just remove it. And then also there is a shortcut here to a Google app. I'm going to long click and remove it as well. And now this looks not so nice. The frame is completely white now. So I'm going to long click on the desktop here, or the home screen, and I'm going to choose wallpapers. And there's one wallpaper here that I think is pretty neat. So I'm going to set it. Now, I guess you could choose either home screen or home and lock screen, but I like to be thorough, so I'm going to go home and lock screen. And okay, here we go. It's working. This seems to be like a placeholder for the Google Play Store, but since that's not installed and you don't have the dependencies installed, you're not going to be able to just install it. I'm sure there are ways, but you're not going to just be able to install the APK and then use Google Play, so I'm just going to remove it. And now what you actually have is, I think, a pretty nice wallpaper that you will see when you boot up your frame. So you could easily, of course, use like a photo or something like that you really, really like, so that when the frame's booted up, you're going to see that particular photo. That's a way of doing it. I've decided I actually like it this way. This is a nice one, and eventually I might choose like a really, really nice photo that I like to be shown when the tablet boots up. If you're asking yourself, how am I gonna get my pictures on this tablet? How is it gonna change? Because you don't only want to see like one photo or one picture all the time. I'll get to that in a moment. Now, just to let you know, you have this little arrow that you can click on, and then you basically see that there are still some apps that are already installed. And one of them is the music app, and I'm just gonna go to app info and disable it. And if you want to go back, you can click on that little back button down there. I'll be doing the same to Thomas's Room and Wi-Fi Analyzer, but I'm gonna do this by going to the settings. So I'll open the settings, then I'll go to apps. And you can see these are the Nixplay apps that we've disabled. So I'm also going to disable the Android keyboard because I don't want some kind of keyboard popping up all of a sudden. You never know with these apps. And then Thomas's Room, I have no idea what it is. I was kind of worried the first time I saw it. It was like, oh, did some Thomas have my frame before me? But actually what it probably might be is some kind of Android stress test. At least that's what some obscure Chinese website claimed when I tried to Google it. And that would actually make sense, that there's some sort of app on the frame itself that would allow the factory to check whether this frame is okay or whether there are some chip problems or something like that. So you would probably want to stress test the frame before you close it and send it off. So Wi-Fi Analyzer, I don't need that either. I'm just going to disable it. So all that's left is Nova, the settings, and Visor, which is good. So I'm going to go back to the home screen, and you will find that the Nova settings have sort of magically appeared here. They seem to keep coming back. You can long click them and then just remove them, but this doesn't mean that necessarily they'll be gone forever. So maybe that's Nova's nice way of saying you have to have the settings there no matter what you do. Probably there's some setting in Nova settings where you can turn it off, and I probably didn't, but it doesn't really matter that much to me because most of the time I won't be seeing the home screen anyway. Okay, now's the time to install some more apps, and I'm just gonna show you what apps I'm going to install. So I'll just go to the app drawer. Oh, I'm actually gonna do something. It's not really important, but I'm gonna go into Nova settings. I'm going into app drawer, and I'm going to disable the frequently used apps because I don't have many apps on it. So everything is like there twice, and that's really confusing in my opinion. Anyway, so this is just a minor tweak. I'm going to be installing some more apps here now. So let's just see. I want to have a web browser. Now, don't expect too much from it because it's based on Android WebView, like most web browsers are, but it's very lightweight. And if you wanted to go to a website that isn't too complicated, you would be able to do that. Okay, then apart from that, I want to have a file manager, and I picked the Material File Manager as I showed you earlier. I think it's a pretty nice one, and I'm going to show you in a moment. So it's performing the streamed install, and as soon as it's installed, you can see it over here on the frame itself. Now, this is again not important, but I'm going to rename it to files because whenever I try and find an app like that, I'm not going to be looking for material files. So there you go. And then when you open it, you can see that it's got a very neat layout, and you have the ability to basically see your whole file system, which is nice. You can also see that I still have 4 gigabytes that I can use, and some of the storage is already used. Now, the next tab I'm going to install is a very important one because only if you've installed it, you will be able to access your frame remotely. So to basically do what I'm doing right now with Visor, you will have to use a different way. As I wasn't able to get ADB over Wi-Fi working, I needed to find a different way. And that different way is the AnyDesk app. Now, I would love to have a different app to use for this because right now, I'm also a bit uneasy about the fact that sooner or later they might decide that you have to pay extra to use it. But then I guess you could still sort of, I don't know, maybe subscribe for a month or something and then do everything you need to do on the frame and then just disconnect and cancel your subscription. Or you could also install one of those apps that doesn't really have to be changed at all and all your configuration isn't done on the frame anymore. And as a last resort, you could always reopen the frame. But the thing is, I'm not sure if you saw this when I opened it earlier on, but I broke a tiny little bit of one of those things that snap into place. It's not important because it's only one of the many, so it's not going to change anything really. But if you do this again and again and again and again, eventually you might get to a point where you really break the frame. You could still, like, if you wanted to, just get a new frame, as in like a wooden frame that you use to put the tablet in. But if you want to keep using the Nixplay frame as it is, which I think makes a lot of sense, then you probably don't want to open it again and again and again and again. Okay, anyway, how can you access it remotely? Well, you need AnyDesk, and we're going to be installing that now. So the command is adb -d install and then anydesk.apk, and in a short moment you will be seeing that app on the screen over there. So here it is. Now I'm going to be starting it, and in a moment you will also see why it was a good idea to install a browser. Okay, privacy statement, sure, whatever, tutorial, I don't need that. Okay. Good. Now, the thing is, right now I can't connect to it. I haven't connected my tablet to my Wi-Fi. So for now, I can't actually access the internet at all. So we're going to fix that now. And to do so, I'm just going to go to the home screen and to the settings. And obviously, I'm just going to go to Wi-Fi. I'm just going to enable my Wi-Fi, and I'm just going to click on it and then basically enter my password. And you'll forgive me for not exposing this to the world. Okay, I've entered my password, and now I'm just going to connect, and now I'm connected to the internet, so that's great. So now I'm going to go to recent tasks and back to AnyDesk, and I'm going to give it file access first of all. So permissions, I want to give it storage access. Not really microphone. I'm not sure if there is a microphone in the tablet, but if there is, I don't really want it to be connected to the internet. So I'm going to leave it as is for now. Okay, then I'm going to go back, and I'm going to disable the battery optimization, which makes no sense anyway because there is no battery. So I'm going to go to all apps, and I'm going to go to AnyDesk and don't optimize. All right, and then I'll just go back. Okay, now we need to install 2 plugins. It's pretty simple. You just have to work your way through the list. I'm going to go on to install, and this is why it was a good idea to have a browser installed. Now you can just download the APK. I mean, you could, of course, download the APK from your PC and then just push it to the tablet with ADB, but the problem is that you would have to sort of know this website first, and so on and so on and so on. So it's much easier to simply just download it, which is what I'm doing now. And then I'm just going to go back. And I'm also going to download the second plugin. And yes. Okay, so I realized the first one didn't work, so I'm going to go back to the first one more time. I had to allow downloads first, so yes, I want to download it. Now everything is downloading or is downloaded already, so I can go back to the home screen. This is why I wanted to have the file manager. I can go into the file manager now, and I can go to download, and there they are. So basically I'm just going to click on them, install. Now, because this is the first time I'm doing this, I also have to allow unknown sources. Okay, I'm going to go back. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to install. And then you just have to wait for a short moment. Okay, it's done. I'm going to be doing this again. And it's done. So that's all good. Now I have to go back and still finish the setup. So I'm going to click on recent tasks. And I'm going to go to AnyDesk. And it wants me to activate the plugin. So here it is, AnyDesk Control Service 81. I'm going to activate it. Yes. Go back and go back. And now battery optimization again. So we have 2 plugins here. We can go to all apps and just choose them both. Okay, so now they're not optimized, which is good. And overlays is the last one you want to be doing. So yes, and back. Now it has automatically found my my second frame, which is also cool. So I could now connect to my first frame via the second frame, but I'm not going to be doing that. What I will be doing is I'm going to be opening AnyDesk on my Windows desktop now. Okay, what you need to connect is this number, your address. So again, forgive me for not exposing that to the internet. I don't think you can do this like completely locally. I don't think it works on a local network. I'm not sure, but I think it connects to the AnyDesk server. So you basically have to be online. And this also means that your frames will always be available online if you decide to go through that route. Obviously, you can do it differently if you want to, but it doesn't bother me too much because the worst thing that's probably going to happen is that someone is going to show me some pictures I don't want to see. But who knows, who knows? I mean, if that tablet does actually have a microphone, it definitely does not have a camera. I checked, but there is none. So if there is a microphone, then someone might be listening into my conversations, but that is probably the worst thing that's going to happen. You could now connect, but I don't want to do that because if I do that, I have to allow for the connection to complete on my tablet, which is a nice security feature, but since I have no way of interacting with the tablet once it's closed up again, I don't want this to happen. So what I want to do is I want to go into the settings on my tablet, and in the settings, I'm going to be going to permissions, and I'm going to be going to permission profiles. And now you have to click on unattended access, which is what you want. And now as soon as you click on enable unattended access, you have to enter a password. And again, forgive me for not showing you my password. I'm just going to enter it now. Okay, so I've entered a password, and now I can close this. Close it and go back. And I don't even have to keep AnyDesk open. It's going to be running in the background anyway. So I can just go back to my home screen. And on my PC, I'm going to be entering the address now. And all I have to do is connect now. It's going to be asking for the password that I just chose because obviously I want it to be password protected. At least that provides me with some level of security. And I'm going to select login automatically from now on and click on OK. And then you've got connected and waiting for Immich. So there you go. Now I have twice the fun. This is kind of weird. I don't know, this mouse pointer. If this happens and you have this weird kind of mouse pointer, then this means that you don't really have complete access. And all you can do is close it and reopen it again, which is what I'm going to do now. So I'm trying it one more time. And now everything seems to be okay. So if I click on this, there is some delay. But as you can see, I can now control my frame using the AnyDesk app. Anyway, if we want to see those pictures, we have to serve them by way of a screensaver. And to do so, we need to activate the screensaver. Now, I have found no way to make that happen in the Android settings that the tablet has. So here is how we'll do it. It's very easy. All you have to do is use this command. So we want to have a screensaver when we put the device to sleep. And this means that this is the moment where I'm going to be closing the frame because now I can do whatever I want remotely and I don't need it to be open any longer. I do not recommend you do that now because if this is the first time you're playing around with this, then you might want to do some other things and you might end up bricking your frame and then you actually want to go through the recovery process and well, that only works if the frame is open. So don't close it. Don't do it, okay? But I'm going to be doing it in a moment just to show you how easy it is to connect afterwards. It works really well. So I'm going to be doing it in a moment. And I suggest that for now you don't and you can thank me later. Okay, now do you remember what I just said? Because as you can see, I just opened it again. I completely forgot that if I want to change the boot animation, I have to do it via ADB, and I can't use ADB over AnyDesk. At least I don't know how to do it. So basically I had to reopen it, but it was actually very easy this time. It's much easier if you don't want to hold it into a camera and you just hold it close to you and you carefully open it. I also didn't break anything this time. So just be careful when you open it and you'll see it works pretty well if you have the right tools. So anyway, here's what I want to do. I want to install a custom boot animation because I told you earlier on, this tablet is basically like an Android phone, and when your Android phone boots up, you can see a certain animation. So you may remember the animation from the beginning of this video from my other frame, and I don't want to install the same animation on this frame just to make sure I can sort of keep the two apart. So what I'm going to be installing is just a different one. I'm going to link all those boot animations in the description as well. Somebody has gone through a lot of work and has collected a lot of boot animations, and it seems to still be getting updates from time to time. The last update is from 2024, so maybe you will even be able to find new boot animations in the months to come. So the boot animation that I chose to use is Circle Flow from that collection that I'm linking in the description. And here's how you install it. You go adbd root, adbd remount. And now this is the fun part. Now we're going to be replacing the Nixplay boot animation. If you want to save it first, you can use ADB to pull it from the frame and save it somewhere. If you've already replaced it, or maybe you will replace it now because you're following my tutorial and you want it back at some stage, maybe because you want to sell the frames to somebody you really hate and you want to put it back into factory mode so that that person has to buy a subscription, then you can still use the recovery button that is on the frame. Now, I'm not going to save that boot animation. I have saved it somewhere. I'm just going to be pushing the different boot animation to the frame right now. And easy enough, the command is push. So we've got adb, then d push, and then circle flow boot animation zip. That's the name that it's been given. And it needs to be pushed into system media boot animation.zip. And you can only do that once you have some kind of root access, which we just took. So there you go, one file pushed and 0 skipped. And now all you have to do is reboot the frame. So let's have a look at what it looks like now. So adbd and reboot. So the mirror is disconnected, but when you take a look at the frame, you will see that it'll now boot up with a different boot animation. If you're not happy with the boot animation, or for some reason or another, it's not working properly, you can simply push a different boot animation. You can normally still use ADB debugging, because I had like one boot animation that was a little bit too big for the frame, I think, and it wasn't able to completely boot. So that boot animation created some kind of boot loop, and all I had to do was push a different boot animation and reboot, and then everything was fine and it worked again. Okay, but now I'm going to close the frame, and I'm not going to be opening again today. Okay, well, the first thing you're going to do, you're going to unplug it. So just be very careful and remove the display, and then just wiggle a little bit and try to get it out. And the moment you have unplugged it, obviously your screen is going to turn dark. Okay, what you need to do now is just put all the screws back in using your screwdriver. And this is almost the most difficult part, because the rest is pretty self-explanatory. All right, number 3 and number 4. You can see this kind of tape that you have over here that is used to hold the screen in place, but there's also like this outer casing, so it's not that important. You don't really have to fix it when you close it. It's still gonna be all right once you've closed it. So I'm just gonna try and carefully lay this back in place. All right, and then just press a little bit up here so it sticks a little bit better. Okay. Almost done. You may remember that when I opened the frame, I had this logo insert, and there was like this one piece that broke off, but it's not really important, because what I can do now is when I reattach the frame, I can just slide it back in and then clip the front panel back into place. But you want to be ultra careful now. The sensor cutouts should of course be placed on top of the sensors. So you want to make sure you have the right side up, just like that, and then you can clip everything back into place. And just like when you opened it, it might not work the first time you do it. And then you just have to rotate the frame and keep clipping it back into place until you've closed all the gaps on your frame. And this is looking all right. Okay, all you have to do now is apply it with power, which is what I'll do now. And then here we go. The boot process has just started, and in a moment we'll be seeing our new boot animation. Congratulations, you've given your frame a second life. So, all good. We've got it all fixed now. You can see the boot animation is there. I'm not gonna be opening it again. All I can do now is connect to the frame using AnyDesk. So I have my Nixplay 2. I'm gonna connect to it. Now I just have to wait for a moment for it to come up again. Now it's green and it's connected to my Wi-Fi, so I'm gonna connect to it and we'll be using it remotely from now on. Now this is a little bit weird. This program has a little keyboard symbol up here, and when you click on it, you can actually see the different buttons that they have, like the virtual buttons. You want to have, of course, the home button. That's the one that you'll be using most of the time. So that's Control, Shift, Alt, and then F6. So that's quite a lot. But you will be pressing it a lot as well when you're using AnyDesk. So if I press it on my keyboard, sooner or later, I will be on my home screen. Now, the second button that you also want to use is the back button. Actually, I think that Visor has done that much better because you have this virtual navigation bar that you can use, but with AnyDesk that is not an option. So you have to do it like this. And the back button is the escape button, so that's also another important one. So you want to know how to get to the home screen, because then you can use the mouse to go to the apps. All right, now I haven't installed any of the picture apps yet because I wanted to show you something else, namely how you can install your Android apps using AnyDesk. The process is twofold. The first thing you do is you click on this little Files button up here, and then you just go to the folder on your PC in the left pane, and on the right pane you see all the files on your tablet. So I'm gonna be going to download because I have already downloaded the other APK files there. So I will push the ImmichFrame app and the Aerial Views app to the frame now, and I do so by clicking on Upload. So up here you'll be seeing that both files are being uploaded. It's already finished. So now you can go back to the actual screen of the tablet. You do that by clicking on that little Screen 1 button up here. And I'm going to go into the Files app. And in the Files app, all I have to do is click on the 2 install files. So that's in the download folder. Aerial Views, I'm just going to click on that. I'm going to install it. And I'm going to go Install. And I'm also going to be installing the ImmichFrame app and install. Okay, so I'll be looking at aerial views with you guys in a moment, and then we'll move on to the ImmichFrame app. But what I want to do before then is show you that you can upload some pictures to the frame. And this could be interesting if you want to use the frame completely offline. You can take it offline afterwards if you want to. And then it'll just show the pictures that you've already uploaded. But probably you don't want to do that unless you have a very specific use case where you know that for the rest of your life, you'll only be showing a few photos, and those photos don't need to be changed. You don't need to do anything on that frame again. And then you can just cut the Wi-Fi and have it like completely offline, which is incredibly secure, of course, but it's also a little bit boring. So how am I going to get my pictures onto the frame? Well, I'm going to go to the Files section up here again, and I'm going to be going up to Pictures. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You can put them into any folder you like, but I'm going to be putting them into Pictures. And I just need some pictures from my PC. Now, I've already prepared them. They're in the Nixplay folder. So I'm just gonna go right there and I'm going to upload them. Okay, now I've got them on the device itself. And this is the interesting part. How are we going to show pictures anyway? We have to serve them by way of a screensaver. So we want to have a screensaver when we put the device to sleep. And I'm going to set a sleep mode here. Now to do so, I have to go to the home screen first, and I've learned this wonderful keyboard shortcut. You can't really call that a shortcut, can you, when there's 4 keys involved? Anyway, I'm gonna go to settings, and I will set the tablet to go to sleep after 15 seconds. You do that by going to display and then sleep. And instead of never sleep, you choose 15 seconds. 15 seconds is actually good. You can't do anything less unless you find a way to do so. I haven't found a way to do so yet, but it's also not really advisable because sometimes when the screensaver becomes active, like now, you actually lose your connection. So when you're trying to control the device remotely and the screensaver starts too early, you might have some problems doing what you want to do. Okay, so basically you have two options to show pictures on your frame. And the first one is the Aerial Views app, which is incredibly nice. I'm just going to walk you through its features and then you can discover and use it yourself. Now you go to Screensaver, you're going to choose Aerial Views, and that's pretty much it. Now, if you want to configure it, you have to go back and actually start the app. So that's what I'll be doing now from the app folder. And then you have all sorts of things that you can control here. If you want to show videos, it's very important that you change the video quality to 1080 and H.264. And you have to do this for all the sources, because if you don't do that, you get some weird green screen and it doesn't look nice at all. So I'm going to enable that, and then we can just sit down and relax and see what's going to happen. And as you can also see, you can also play local files. So all the files that I've just uploaded to the frame, you will be able to just serve them directly from your frame. As you can see now, it's loading a video, and there you've got it flying along Dubai. It doesn't look very good because, and that's one of the problems, it's just not meant to be transmitted via some kind of remote desktop software. So you probably want to disable the screensaver when you're working on this. Now I'm just going to disable them so I can show you that you can of course also use the local storage, and then you say allow, of course, and here you have to choose videos and photos or photos only, whatever you want, and specify a folder name, and then you can just add the folder name that you have there, and you can say test local search settings, and there you go, 7 files found. It's found all the pictures that I put in there earlier on. Now, since I just put in the name of the folder, you can choose any folder you like. I'm just gonna wait for a short time, and then you'll be able to see the photos that I've just chosen. So you get a short loading, then the pictures are served and you can take a look at them. I'm just gonna go back. When you go to settings, you can change the overlay. So that means, do you want to have the clock? Do you want to have the date, and so on? Do you want to have a gradient at the bottom of the screen, the top of the screen? This is really, really nice. The D-pad remote, this is what I told you earlier. You can use this app to use your Nixplay remote control. So you can browse through your photos using the remote control. I'll just leave this to you so you can start playing around with this a little bit. And let me just say that it's also possible to basically use a Samba share. So that means that you can access a Windows shared folder, or also like a NAS folder somewhere. What I like about this, you could use SyncThing to, for example, just synchronize the pictures that you took on your phone during the day to a special folder, and then have them already on the frame when you come home without you having to do anything, no uploading, no anything. It happens in the background. Or what you could also do is you could sync your photos to a special folder via SyncThing, and then you could run a script and only take like the 10 latest photos to be put into a special folder, and that special folder is the folder that you'll be serving to your frame. So then you will only have like the last 5 or 10 photos that you took, or I mean, the possibilities are endless. And what you also find is this image server here. And what's really nice about this is it's very simple. All you have to do is create an API key. So here you enter your server URL, and then authentication method, you go to API key, and then you just enter it there, and then you can select an album, and that album is then served to your frame. So that's pretty much the Nixplay functionality that you know. You can create albums and you can automatically share them with the frame. So why do I like this? Well, it's highly customizable. That's definitely very, very nice. And you have so many possibilities to show pictures from either your local storage or via some kind of self-hosted service, be it a NAS or be it an image server. So this is really highly customizable and still under active development. So who knows what else you might be able to do in the coming months and years. So why wouldn't you just pick this right away? Well, there are 2 things that I really like about ImmichFrame, which is an app that someone has developed that connects to your image server, but you have to run a second service parallel to your image server so that the frame can actually pick up the pictures from your server. Now, the good thing about ImmichFrame is that unlike aerial views, you can actually pick several albums that the pictures are pulled from. So that's pretty nice, because with aerial views, you have to pick one of the albums that you want to present on your frame. Now with ImmichFrame, you do all the customization, all the configuration, not in the app, but you do it on your server. So you have an extra service that you can run using Docker Compose. And when you use the Docker Compose file, you can specify whether you want the images to be zoomed in. You can specify whether you would like to show the local weather. So ImmichFrame is pretty nice if you don't want to remotely connect to your frame and just want the whole thing to work. And to troubleshoot this, because you have to basically run another service that you haven't maybe used before, when you pick the app. Now, the first thing you want to do, which is a bit weird to understand, you have to pull it down. But how are you going to pull it down on the frame? Well, you have to use your mouse and just pull it down like this. And then you get to the configuration screen. So all you do is you enter this demo ImmichFrame.online. You don't need a secret. This is actually a password that you're probably going to be setting on your own ImmichFrame web service that you have to run additionally to your image server. And it's basically a website that just shows the pictures. So if you go to this website now, demo ImmichFrame.online, you'll just see the pictures. But you don't want to see the pictures on a website, you want to see them on your frame. So nothing in there. You don't want to use WebView because the WebView that is installed is a very old version. This option here is for when the images don't fill the whole screen and you have some bars. And the question is, do you want to have these blurry bars or do you want to have black bars? So probably you want to have those blurry bars, because especially if you have your clock on, it looks kind of weird if there's like some black bars down there or up there. Okay, so this is pretty much all you want to do. You go to save settings, and then all you have to do is wait for it to happen, and there you go. That's when the magic happens. And now I'm getting disconnected, which is what often happens when you have these screensavers. I told you earlier on, it keeps happening. So that's why I'm putting it to sleep after 15 seconds, and I don't want it to be any faster than that. So as you see, you can go to that website as well and just use it as a screensaver in your browser. So that's also a possibility if you're interested in doing that, but it also helps when you're troubleshooting your own ImmichFrame web service that you've just started with a Docker Compose file. And there's one more feature of ImmichFrame that is absolutely fantastic. What it does do is it'll take all your portrait photos and turn them into landscape photos. Now, this isn't done by cropping them or by scaling them to fit. No, they're just placed side by side in this beautiful landscape mode, which will enable you to just keep your frames in landscape mode all the time. That is actually why I bought my second frame. I wanted to have a landscape frame and a portrait frame, but with ImmichFrame, you don't have to choose. You can just use the landscape mode for all your photos. And the nice thing is that even the portrait photos will look good in this special kind of mode. Here's one more feature. They will get reshuffled. Every time you see two portrait photos side by side, there's a good chance that you haven't seen them that way before. That is if you have enough pictures that are being served to your frame. If you only have like 5, 6, or 10 pictures, then you will of course see the same combinations over and over again. And sometimes it even happens that you see the same picture side by side with itself. So you basically see it twice. And there's one more thing. Using ImmichFrame, you can even see your local weather. All you need is a local weather map API key, which fortunately is free, and you just provide your ImmichFrame service with that API key, which enables it to pull the local weather data and pass it on to your frame. So hey, we've covered quite a bit of ground here, and there are so many features to both of these apps that I decided I'd give you a short overview at the very end of this video. So I'll quickly talk about the advantages and disadvantages when it comes to using aerial views, but also ImmichFrame. And that will also explain to you why I said in the beginning that you probably want to have both apps. Now, aerial views is optimized for videos. That's probably where it got its name from. I guess it's meant to serve these short videos. And if you have like a small business or a cafe or something like that, you could probably just put up your frames there and then stream the videos to them. And it would always look nice, and you wouldn't have to find the videos yourself. Also, it's highly configurable, which means that you can almost change anything you want, especially when it comes to the overlays on your frame. That in itself would probably not be enough for a recommendation, but what is really nice is that the Nixplay remote control works out of the box. The killer feature, in my opinion, is the local file access, the Samba share support, but also the WebDAV support. So it's really easy to integrate aerial views into any kind of setup that isn't only dependent on Immich. What is nice about it though is that it also supports Immich. Currently, it can only pull photos from one Immich album, which is a limitation that I hope that the developer will sooner or later maybe expand upon. Now, why would you want to have ImmichFrame? Well, the better question would probably be, why wouldn't you want to have it? What is exceptional about ImmichFrame is that, generally speaking, you could install it and then just stop thinking about it. You don't have to update it as long as there isn't some kind of breaking change in the Immich server itself or in the ImmichFrame service. But what you could do is you could install ImmichFrame, you could set it to your server address, and then you could close the frame and never touch it again. So that is really nice because all the configuration for your frame would then be done via the ImmichFrame service. What sets it apart from aerial views is also that it supports multiple albums, so you don't have to set up a special kind of album on your Immich server just for your frame. But that doesn't really bother me too much because I think it's actually a good idea to handpick just the best photos that you really want to see on your frame and to add them to a special frame album. So I can live with that. But what is a real game changer in my opinion is the side-by-side portrait view that you get when you put your frame in landscape mode. Now that is something that I didn't expect and that I don't really want to live without anymore. Additionally, you can see the local weather, which is a nice touch and further enhances the whole experience. Now, there are some downsides. It only works with Immich, which is to be expected given the name, but it also requires an extra service. That could also be considered an advantage because, as I said before, that extra service is where you do almost all of your configuration. The only setting that you deal with in the app itself is the question whether you want to have those blurry bars at the top and at the bottom of your screen. So as you can see, there are good reasons for using both of these apps, and that's also why I'm recommending both of them. And you probably just want to play a little bit with them and then just see which one of the two fits your use case best. Okay, that's it. I guess we've all learned our lesson. Don't buy cloud-dependent hardware. And if you know other people who have Nixplay devices, spread the word, share your knowledge, but also this video if you want to. And don't forget to rate their apps on the Google Play Store, but also on the App Store or on Amazon. And if you have any kind of knowledge that you can share with us to help us get even more control of our frames or of different models, then I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.